Is the core assembly here mainly Bhakti Vriksha group members of the same Bhakti Vriksha group, or is there more than one Bhakti Vriksha group? Besides the invited guests, but there's the core is one or two Bhakti Vriksha groups? One. One. And you're the host? Who's our host? You're the host. Hostess. The hostess with the mostess. Okay. And you gather here once a week? Right here in the same spot. How many come generally?
Sometimes we have 14, sometimes 10.
Okay. And then there's a few extras that join the party. Okay. And how long has this Bhakti Vriksha gathering been going on here? 1 year. Ooh. Okay. Okay. Well, I have a sense of the topic, and I'll share it and see if I got it right. This is maybe more appropriate or less appropriate for this particular group because you've been meeting for over a year now. But here in Naperville, compliments of Chaitanya Avatari's recent visits, the Bhakti Vriksha gatherings have expanded in number and in the number of participants and so forth. So there's a lot of people coming. You have a very melodious home. Better keep the phone by your side in case it starts to sing and dance again. And aside from here in Naperville, what happens as people get started in their Krishna consciousness, the level of participation and the standards of commitment and so forth have some kind of fluctuating scale. And that's to be expected, it's completely natural. But making steps to progress in Krishna consciousness, what's appropriate for me at my stage is sometimes a question. And one of the reasons for going forward in another step, is the inspiration that this is going to help me progress on the path to Krishna. So knowing what is going to help me and why it's going to help me is our subject. Why is it important, for example, aside from participating in our gatherings, Bhakti Vriksha and or the temple program, why is it important to have some regular daily practice at home, daily sadhana, and then attending to that as we have some daily sadhana to quantitatively and qualitatively both improve step by step by step. Why is it important, and what are some of the steps? That's a good introduction to the topic. Is that a relevant topic? Not that any of you don't have regular sadhana, but how to consider understanding why is a natural impetus for what and how. So I was thinking on the way over here of this story that I heard long ago. Prabhupada told the story, and I heard it more than once, but I can't remember the details of the names. But there was a king whose name I can't remember. Prabhupada, when he told the story, gave the name of the king. And he was curious, so he asked his minister something in the direction of what's the limit of austerity that a man can endure? Something like that. And he was contemplating, and they were passing by a river, and it was a very cold time of the year, and he said, I don't think that someone could stand with their body immersed in the water all night long. It's so cold. I would give some such and such wealth to someone who can do like that. I'd probably have, the opening part of the story doesn't exactly go like that, but you get the idea. And so there was a proclamation in the kingdom, and one man did it. His whole body was immersed in the icy cold water all night long, and he was then eligible for the reward that the king was ready to give. And so the king asked the man, when the man came for his reward, how did you do this? He said that there was a light off in the distance, and I just focused my attention on the light that was off in the distance, and that gave me enough body heat that I could withstand the cold. Something like that. And the king said, oh, you cheated. I'm not going to give you the reward. You're taking heat from some distant place and keeping your body warm. And the minister took exception. The king gave his word, and he went back on his word. So some time passed, and then the king wanted to discuss something with his minister, so he called for his minister. The messenger came back, says he's occupied right now, he'll come when he can. And it took half the day. So the king became upset and went to go see the minister rather than the minister coming to see him. And he saw the minister in a very unusual situation, had little humble residence, and there was a flame here and a pole up here and a pot hanging on the pole above the flame. And the king said, how come you didn't come? I was asking. He said, well, I was in the middle of cooking. Well, what do you mean you're in the middle of cooking? You have the pot way up there and the flame is way down there. And he said, well, it'll take longer. But, if the man who's in the water can take heat from some lamp at some distant place and keep his body warm, then why I can't do the cooking this way? And the king understood his point. He had cheated the man, and if he wants to be true to his word, then however long it takes for me to cook, although the pot is 6 feet above the fire, then the heat should eventually make it. But if you want to cook, you don't put the flame and the pot that you want to have the cooking items inside 6 feet above. You bring the pot close to the flame, and then the heat transfers quick. So, probably got the story not completely correct, but you get the idea. The purpose, the means of making spiritual progress is for the impure to contact the supreme pure. And when the impure contacts the supreme pure, something happens. The impure becomes purified. Not that the supreme pure becomes contaminated by the association of the impure, but the impure becomes purified. And regular association of devotees, regular spiritual practice increases, it brings the pot closer to the flame being Krishna and the pot being our consciousness. Regular practice at something, spiritual activity, is recommended. For someone that's doing nothing to do something, that's good. And to do something on a weekly basis, that's better. And then to continue that for some time, that's better. And then the something that one of our acharyas, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, teaches, it's mentioned in a simple way in the final purport of chapter 6 Bhagavad Gita, that a person may be identified at a particular stage of yoga because they're not going further. Karma yoga is detached work offering the fruits to Krishna. Gyan yoga is where one is pursuing knowledge of the truth through power of speculation. Dhyan yoga is one who is pursuing the absolute truth through the process of meditation, and so forth. Each of the forms of yoga may be identified with a particular emphasis, but that they're all, when done properly, there's a process of knowledge, there's a process of meditation, there's a process of detached work within bhakti. They're actually meant to carry one to the next stage, or said differently, they're subsets of bhakti. And if you don't continue to progress, then you can be identified as a karma yogi, a gyan yogi, a dhyan yogi, etc. But all of them are included within the larger umbrella of bhakti. So those that are very fortunate to be introduced to the bhakti process and the bhakti path are by nature progressive. And that progress is bring the pot closer to the flame. And not sometimes is good, but the cooking is going to take place much better if you bring the flame and the pot close together and keep them there. So some regular spiritual activity on a daily basis, according to what time one can commit to, but in principle, it's advantageous for spiritual progress. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur's teaching is similar. He says it a little differently, but the message is essentially the same. And that is, at whatever stage one is, one should very carefully, attentively, thoughtfully, consciously take up activity that's appropriate for that particular stage or position that one is in. And in anticipation of going further towards the goal that particular practice is meant, always be considering what can I do that will be a sustainable step forward. And in this way, one can make progress on the path to Krishna. We maintain steadiness in what we're doing, and there's some eagerness to go a step further. It's something like one of the places I was recently visiting, a child, two boys. One boy is a real achiever. The other boy is kind of lazy. And his mom said, whenever he applies himself, he does excellent. But he doesn't always apply himself, little complacent. Not exactly lazy, but sometimes inspired and interested and does fantastically well. He has the capacity, sometimes less. So my advice in that particular case, knowing the family and the boy, find out those areas that he really likes, and just specific in terms of his academics, those areas that he really likes, and provide resources in those areas that he really likes. Because when you like to learn, and the resources for learning are there, you'll do very nicely. So, for each of us, we're involved in Krishna consciousness at different stages, different levels, but there's some attraction for serving Krishna and engaging in the activities of devotion to Krishna, cooking for Krishna, working for Krishna, singing for Krishna, etc., etc. different activities that are attractive to us, knowing that that's for Krishna, it'll help us on the path to Krishna. So giving some special emphasis to those things that come natural to us, and like we were discussing in class this morning, we may like them very much, so we do those things because they energize us. It may have some problems down the road that we become proud that we're good at this, or we achieve, or something like that, and some pride enters the heart. But if we enthusiastically engage in Krishna's service, then purification takes place. And of all the activities that are beneficial in the course of the whole range of devotional service to Krishna, most important is chanting. Lord Chaitanya taught that. Of all the high-grade activities that one can do that are beneficial and elevating, is there one thing that's superlative, most important? Immediately Lord Chaitanya's answer was the chanting of the holy name. So something that we should do, or should aspire to do, is daily chanting. Something. I've shared this many times, something that I learned when I was a teenager. It's still with me. If there's something that's good for you, do it regularly. Really not so deep, but if it's good, don't just from time to time when I feel like it, but if it's good, do it regularly. And you do something that's good regularly, and a lot of benefit will come. If you do it sporadically or whimsically or sometimes not, same benefit, the same, what you can derive from that thing that's good for you isn't going to be the same. Something that's good for you, do it regularly. It's a mode of goodness principle, regulation in things that are good for you. Strengthens the quality of goodness. Regulation in anything. Regulation in when you eat and how much you eat, and when you sleep and how much you sleep, and your hours of work. And regulation is a feature of goodness. Being regulated, it strengthens goodness. Being clean strengthens goodness. If it's good to be clean, then be clean regularly, not once a month. I think it was the second time I was visiting in Beijing. It's in the north part of China, and above the north part of China is Mongolia, which also Chinese speaking. And there was somebody that just happened to be visiting from Mongolia when I was visiting Beijing. And he was new to Krishna consciousness, because he is off in this remote place. And I asked him, what literatures have you read, and are you familiar with the standards of practicing Krishna consciousness? I forget exactly how it came up, but he mentioned that because where he lives it's so cold for half of the year, sometimes he'll go for 6 months without taking a bath. My jaw hit the floor. I tried not to react in such a way he would be embarrassed. I tried not to show it. But I said, well, now that you're practicing Krishna consciousness, you need to be a little more attentive to these kinds of things, because it'll help your Krishna consciousness. Cleanliness is next to godliness. You should bathe daily, especially when you're not in Mongolia in the middle of the winter. But he had just become accustomed to it, and apparently that's not so exceptional. It's kind of what people do. It's so cold. And they don't have what we have. They don't have tap water that's hot. Anyway, something that's good for you, you do it regularly, and of all the things that are good, the chanting of the holy name is superlatively good, most important. And so, daily. And then along with chanting is hearing. These first two are the first two of the 9 processes of bhakti, Shravanam, Kirtanam. And by hearing and chanting Shravanam, Kirtanam, then the heart becomes cleansed, Scrubbanam. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Scrubbanam. Cheto Darpanam Arjanam. The heart becomes, the mirror of the mind, or the heart becomes cleansed. And when the heart becomes cleansed, lots of things happen. One feels more energy, one feels more focus, clarity, a deeper sense of purpose, deeper insight. You become more efficient in what you do because your clarity is greater. It helps even in the material side of life because of that spiritual well-being, material well-being follows. Once upon a time I had more discretionary time than I do today. And when I had that greater discretionary time, one of the things that I did was a large number of devotees would weekly send me their sadhana report. I had a whole chart filled out and how many rounds and what time of day they chanted and how much they heard and how much they read. And I don't have the capacity to keep up with that anymore. But it was for several years, and I can give you this feedback. Perhaps the most outstanding realization from those that actually monitored their japa and their hearing and their reading was there's a one-to-one correlation between how well the day went and how well their chanting went. And if their chanting was sloppy or distracted or something, they got up late and they chanted late, so they had to chant sometime during the day or the evening, and the whole day was a struggle. And it was like, by tracking, it became very evident to them, the quality of their life was so much connected to one-to-one correlation between quality chanting on a daily basis. So this is some description of why increasing some daily commitment in devotional practice is important. There's some philosophical message that I'm happy to share. This comes from Jiva Goswami in his Bhakti Sandarbha. He cites some scriptures that glorify the chanting of the holy name, its great power, the power to uproot all karma, and so many glorifications. So then he raises the question, and then addresses the question. If the holy name is so powerful like this, why is it necessary to chant every day? Because the power is there even once to do all these wonderful things, so why not just chant once? Why do you have to chant in a regulated fashion? And then to that question he refers to, of all things, Vedanta Sutra. And Vedanta Sutra has 4 parts. It's divided into this section of Sambandha. From Hindi you know the meaning. Sambandha? Relationship. Sambandha means relationship. So the relationship of all things with the source of emanation, Sambandha. So the first 2 of the 4 parts of Vedanta Sutra are dealing with Sambandha. The source of everything and everything emanates from the source and the relation between everything and the source. Second section of Vedanta Sutra is when one acts within that relationship, what does that look like? What are the elements of acting in one's relationship with the source of everything? And the third part, which is the 4th section of Vedanta Sutra, it's what's the fruit? When you act in your relationship with the source of everything, what happens? prayojana. Sambandha, abhideya, prayojana. So the first two verses in the prayojana section, because Vedanta Sutra is just sutras, it doesn't expand the whole thing. But it says that spiritual activity is to be done regularly. Asakrit. It's to be done regularly. So the commentary poses the question, why? If the acting in one's relationship and you've reached the stage of the fullness or the fruit, why do you have to do it regularly? And the second aphorism addresses it. It's necessary because the scriptures enjoin that you must. So the example is given. Even in the Chandogya Upanishad, 9 times the speaker of it, a particular phrase, forget who, says the same thing 9 times because repetition is necessary. Repetition is necessary because the heart is blocked. The example is given. When the sun is shining, without clouds, we can perceive the fullness of the rays of the sun, heat and light. When there's clouds in the sky, depending upon the thickness of the clouds, or say there's mist in the sky, then the fullness of the heat and the fullness of the light doesn't come. And when the sky has very heavy clouds, it's almost like night. Very, very less heat and less light. Similarly, within the heart, there's clouds of offense and there's the mist of ignorance. Because of offense against the Lord or the Lord's devotee or that which is of a spiritual nature, devotional service or the deity or the holy name, when there's offense, it gives rise to clouds in the heart, unwanted things in the heart. Just naturally that happens. And so when that happens, when there's offense or there's clouds of ignorance, mist of ignorance, then the brilliance of the holy name doesn't shine through. Although the holy name this nice metaphor is used. When the holy name enters the heart, although the holy name is the fullness of Krishna's potency is there, we don't experience the fullness of Krishna's potency. Because the clouds of offense and the mist of ignorance is blocking the power of the holy name, or the power of our spiritual practice. And for that reason we need to regularly. There's no limitation from the side of Krishna, the limitation is from our side, because our heart is covered with contamination or influences that block the power of Krishna's holy name from our experiencing it. Just like the clouds in the sky. When it's midday and there's clouds in the sky, the sun is shining as brightly as when there's no clouds. The sun actually isn't blocked, just our experience of it is diminished. And for that reason, chanting or spiritual practice should be done on a regular basis. At any stage of life. I mean, it's not only for adults. It's for our kids also. Because you have a heart, I hope. And the heart also has its contamination. And the effect when one takes up something at an early stage of life, we're more pliable. Prabhupada gives the example of a green. Is everything okay? Green bamboo and an old bamboo. When the wind comes, a green bamboo can bend and not break, and wind comes and an old bamboo can break. So it's actually easier for, we're all spirit souls. Spirit souls are eternal. We've had who knows how many lifetimes, too many to count. But when in the youthful stage, spiritual practices are especially important. At any stage they're important, especially important to establish that standard. Now it should be done willfully, not forcefully, but it's especially valuable. But at any stage, so taking up the practice of Krishna consciousness should be done in a steady application and gradually increasing, but doing something, yeah. One last thing. In Jiva Goswami's explanation of this answer to the question, is devotional practice needed on a regular basis, he refers to a teaching from Patanjali and his Yoga Sutras, where he gives a nice definition of practice, abhyasa. And the definition he gives is, practice has three elements. One is every day. Second is, because there's Sanskrit terms that accompany, sustained over time. And the third is with proper intention or with faith that this is going to carry me to where I want to go. Faith or proper intention, really clear about intention when we're doing our spiritual activities of any kind. The clarity of purpose or intention is so important. Just let's take cooking. At least in the human species, largely people cook. And the difference between the cooking that a devotee does and the cooking that a non-devotee does isn't just what the ingredients are, although the ingredients, they may be very different, and the cleanliness standard, which also may be very different, but it's the purpose for which you're doing the activity of cooking. And it actually even starts from before you do the cooking. It's when you do the shopping. You want something that's very nice because it's going to be for Krishna. And it even starts before that. You're working to get the funds to buy the item that you're going to purchase to offer to Krishna. It's the whole network. But just take what you do in the kitchen. So it's nice to have cooking skill and recipes to follow that are appealing and tasteful and so forth. But it's a whole other consciousness to think about my tongue and Krishna's service. And according to the devotional teachings, the act of cooking is one in which the consciousness of the cook is transmitted through the act of cooking. Isn't that interesting? Say it again. In the act of cooking, the consciousness of the cook is transmitted. And so when you're eating, it's not just the food, it's the consciousness you're ingesting in some form or fashion, the transmitted consciousness of the cook. Therefore, in Vedic culture, deity cooking is to be done by brahmanas. To be offered to the deity in the temple, it's to be done by brahmanas. Prabhupada told this story. Very interesting. During the time of British occupancy in Calcutta, the British liked Calcutta largely because of the weather. It wasn't too this or too that. It was nice, and so many other, tropical trees that were fragrant, and so they liked Calcutta. They made it their headquarters instead of Delhi, and they had nice houses, and they wanted their nice houses to have guards, so they engaged brahmanas because they could trust the brahmanas. This is what Prabhupada said. The brahmanas were so strict Of course, they compromised by taking some employment, but they were so strict that they did their own cooking on location. They didn't even bring prasadam prepared from their home, but rather they had their own little cooker, and during a certain time of the day, because they had the time, they did the cooking right there. They made the offering to their Shalagram Shila right there, and they accepted the remnants of their deity right there in the place of cooking, because they were so strict. They wanted to cook for themselves. Prabhupada explained like that. That was pretty much common, like standard, because one whose consciousness is refined is very concerned with things that affect consciousness. So my point here is, it's the consciousness or the intention, the faith with which we do our devotional activity that makes it devotional. Otherwise, what's the difference? We're not a vegetarian society, we're a Krishna conscious society. And so the Krishna consciousness is the primary element, and the subset of that is we're vegetarian. But we're not a vegetarian society. We're vegetarian, but we're Krishnatarian. We offer our food to Krishna with devotion. So the point, again, is the regularity of our devotional practice, to have it, according to Patanjali, count as abhyasa, or a spiritual practice, is the intention behind, the faith and the confidence that this activity, reading, hearing, chanting, is going to purify my existence, will carry me to Krishna. And as I get carried to Krishna, my life will improve in so many other ways. But just by this one thing, Krishna Bhakti, Shraddha Shabde Vishwas Kahe Sudrida Nishchaya, Krishna Bhakti, Sarva Karma Krita Hoya. By achieving Krishna Bhakti, all other desirable things will follow. When I have $1 million, I can take care of my $10, $100 problems without difficulty. So what's that $1 million solution? It's faith is that attaining Krishna Bhakti, all other desirable things, I don't need to fret over the other things. I need to focus on the one thing. And the other things will follow. Not like I don't make any effort at all, but the one thing is the one thing, and other things follow that one thing. Other things become empowered by, or energized by, or strengthened by the one thing. So these are some of the why elements of having everyday practice. Something. Because if it's good for you, you do it every day. Regularly. Not just, not just when you feel like it. Of course, doing something that's even when you feel like it, that's connected to Krishna, that's good. Certainly better than not. But to progress, the life of progress is making some evaluation of what's something I can maintain on a daily basis, and you do that. And then when you go to the Bhakti Vriksha gathering or the temple or some festival or something, it's a whole other experience. Whole other experience. So there's some thoughts on that topic. See if there's any other thoughts you want to add, or comments, or... Do you chant every day? Sometimes. You sometimes chant every day. Out of a week, how many days of the week do you chant?
6.
8 days out of the week. That's pretty good. You know there's 7 days in a week? And you chant 8 days of the week? You're pulling my leg. How many days out of the week do you chant in the morning or sometime during the day? Chant japa. Every day? Sometimes. 5 days? 4 days? 3 days? 2 days? 1 day?
6.
Okay. 8. Huh? Oh, 6. 6. 6 out of 7. Mom, what do you say? Yeah, 6 out of 7. Huh? Sunday he takes a break. Very interesting. And you're very regulated about it. Sunday's a break day. You're a nice devotee. Very unique. Any comments, questions? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Anything that we do regularly or on a daily basis, after sometimes it becomes mechanical. So how do we get over this becoming mechanical but have some feelings also?
Well, a big part of it is to understand why. And then when you begin with the why. Hare Krishna. There she goes. Okay. There's lots of reasons why things become mechanical, and it's helpful to understand why they become mechanical, and then you can adjust. But, then it goes back to mechanical again. Like, in this middle planetary region, fruitive activity, the mode of passion and getting something and achieving something and gaining something and working hard for that something, that's the nature of the mode of passion. And due to that primary mode, what's inspiring about chanting when we don't so easily see the result? I mean, what's fruitive about chanting? You're not getting more money, you're not getting more, stuff. Like money can buy, etc. So, distraction when chanting is the norm. Because our thoughts go to something that's generally on the fruitive side, fruitive activity side. Planning, lamenting, the things that didn't go well, and so forth. So distracted chanting leads to this sense of mechanical, and so that's one. So then go to another mode, turn the channel to the mode of goodness that says, I do this because I know it will purify me. So with the intent that my existence will become purified, it becomes less mechanical. It becomes dutiful, but less mechanical. And then on the personal side is the name and Krishna are the same, and so you're associating with Krishna. It's not you don't have a relationship, a mechanical relationship. There's contradictory terminology. It's restoring our relationship with Krishna. It's a calling for Krishna. And Krishna responds. Having clarity of the personal nature of the name, that's not just an activity, helps take away the mechanical part. I guess what I'm saying here is, there's a very strong tendency to be impersonal, and we are impersonal with Krishna, for starters. And taking up spiritual practice, it's all about Krishna, and there's this impersonal tendency. So to go beyond mechanical chanting means, or the means is to devotional chanting, purposeful or conscious chanting, conscious sadhana. So we need to apply ourselves to be conscious of what it is that we're doing and for whom we're doing it. That's bhakti. And bhakti will carry you on the other side of the mechanical. Even on Sunday. Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna.
I believe Lord Krishna is the supreme Godhead.
Okay.
But,
Me too.
but all my friends and my family, those who are devotees, but not exactly devotees, because they believe in we have like so many demigods. So
Yes.
we believe they've been following um, that they are the supreme Godhead. And how should I convince them that Lord Krishna is the supreme Godhead? What should I say to them? Because they keep on telling that since you went to ISKCON and you are following Krishna consciousness, they highlight only Lord Krishna. So it pinches me a lot. So, but I was not having proper answer. So,
Well, are you interested in yourself being satisfied with what you're doing, or your interest is to help them understand why you're doing what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm interested.
Because the third is, how do you convince them? And I don't know you're going to be able to convince them. Huh?
You set up the example.
Huh?
You set up your own example and they can see you doing it and then they can do it.
Well, that may take a long time. But if you're looking for an answer so that they understand, why you're doing what you're doing, I can supply that answer. And it's not so distant from at least inviting them to consider the supreme cause of all causes, sarva karana karanam. So here's a starting point. This is one suggestion. Do you accept Bhagavad Gita? Ask them. Do you accept? And everyone's going to say yes. How can you say no? I don't accept Bhagavad Gita. I'm a Hindu. I accept Bhagavad Gita. Okay, let's go to Bhagavad Gita. And because the authority of Bhagavad Gita should govern our lives, right? So it's Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. Now Krishna is the Bhagavan that's being referred to, but it's Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. And he's the highest authority. Otherwise we don't need Bhagavad Gita, we can be our own authority, right? But he's the highest authority. What does Krishna say? And then you can point to a few verses where Krishna is very clear about how worship should be done. And worship that's being done in a different way is avidhi, without knowledge, or it's misguided. That actually worship is meant for him. And why? Because he's the source of the giver of the benediction that the demigods, or they say they don't like the demigods, devas, that the devas give. They give benedictions. People worship benedictions because the devas give benedictions. Now where does the capacity of the devas to give their benedictions? Where does they get the power from? They're powerful, they're Ishwaras. And there's a Parama Ishwara. Here's the statement of Bhagavad Gita. Who is that Parama Ishwara, from whom all Ishwaras derive their power? So there's, in life of devotion to the Supreme Ishwara, or Parameshwara, we honor the Parameshwara. It's so, an example, easy to understand, two examples from the Bhagavatam. If you want to give nourishment to your body, do you put food in your ear, or in your navel, or in your eye, or do you put it in your mouth? And you put it in your mouth, it goes to the stomach and goes to all the parts of the body. And the whole body is nourished just by giving food to the stomach. If you want to nourish a tree, you put water on the root of the tree rather than the leaves and the twigs and the branches and all the parts of the tree. And then the water goes to all the parts of the tree. So what's the root of all existence? According to Bhagavad Gita, because you accept Bhagavad Gita, what's the root of all existence? Here's some indication from Bhagavad Gita. What's the root of all existence? And it doesn't say the devas. It says aham. Bhagavan is saying aham. Aham sarvasya prabhavo matak sarvam pravartate. I'm the source of everything, everything comes from me. That's the root of all existence. So we just put water on the root of all existence, then all existence becomes nourished. Can we say this deva, that deva, or the other deva is the root of all existence? No. Can we say that about Bhagavan? Yes. He says it. And not only he says it, but others declare it. So for that reason, devotion goes to the root of all existence. That's why. And it's not by giving. Here's a real easy one. Supposing somebody during their childhood, they lived near a Hanuman temple, and their mother and grandmother and great-grandmother, they all worship Hanuman. And then something happened. They read Ramayana and they understood that Hanuman is a great lover of Ram. So now they're feeling some attraction for Ram. So they go to Hanuman and say, Hanuman, is it okay if I worship Ram? What's Hanuman going to say? Jai Ram, Shri Ram, 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 Ram. You're not, so you saying to your relatives, I am not neglecting, I'm watering the root, and thereby worship of the devas is already accomplished. By this one thing, the other things are accomplished. That's the teaching of Bhagavad Gita. And ashratadana purusha, those who are faithless of that reality, their progress, spiritual progress, is checked. Material rewards may come from the devas, but the devas can't give release from the cycle of birth and death. Bhagavan can. So become familiar with Bhagavad Gita, and whoever is guiding your group, can point out these are some verses, become conversant with the verses. And then I would not recommend that your objective is to persuade them that they should stop what they're doing and doing what you're doing. That you got to push back if you try to do that. What's wrong with you? You think you're better than us, or something like that. So don't, just rather explain why you're doing what you're doing. There's a scriptural support and basis for this. Besides, I'm attracted. There's a scriptural support and basis for it. And then, like we heard, just by example, show the qualities of a Vaishnava, and that speaks volumes. More than your words. And we're not disrespectful. We're giving our worship to the personality of Godhead while we're respecting all living entities. Inappropriate for their position. Demigods, devas get special respect. But worship and service goes to the personality of Godhead. Food goes to the stomach. And water goes to the root. And worship goes to the supreme source and cause of everything, while respecting everyone. Anything else? Okay. I won't ask everybody if they're chanting daily. Huh? If there's anybody that's not chanting daily, some with beads chanting Mahamantra in a quiet moment of the morning, then please do. Because it's very beneficial. And as you begin, you'll experience the benefit and sustain it over some time. And when you feel that some increment of increase can take place, then you do that. No competition or urgency, but always aspire to go to the next level. And in addition, some regular reading. The devotees in San Jose or Silicon Valley, they have this chart that says if you read so many verses of Bhagavad Gita, you'll finish the Bhagavad Gita in so much time, and read so many verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, you finish the Bhagavatam in so much time. So it's like all calculated out. Some not only the sense of achievement of something, but the purification that comes from that regular activity. So minimally regular, in addition to the Bhakti Vriksha gatherings and attending the temple activity, daily sadhana, some chanting, some reading from Prabhupada's books or the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, something every day, including Sunday. Do you take a bath on Sunday?
He's very clean.
You're very clean.
Very clean.
He takes many baths.
Many baths.
Many baths. Do you brush whatever teeth you have left on Sunday? Doesn't brush his teeth?
Brushing is a problem.
Really? We got some secrets that are coming out of the bag. You're a very unique devotee. You should chant on Sunday too. Okay? He's reluctant. You think about it. Okay. Now I have some box of Mahaprasadam, looks like, so I'm going to distribute some Mahaprasadam over here. I did the pink ones. What's that? What's that? Huh? Yeah. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.